Eicher Commercial Vehicles and President SIAM. Let us also welcome Mr. Dhruv Agarwal, Group CEO, Housing.com and PropTiger.com. Warm welcome to you, sir. Vineet Agarwal also joins us on the stage, MD, Transport Corporation of India. And we also have with us on the first panel, Dr. Aashish Chaudhry, Managing Director, Aakash Healthcare. Warm welcome to all of you. To moderate our first panel this evening, let me please invite on stage Sourav Majumdar, Editor, Business Today. Over to you, Sourav.
Thank you, Sakshi. And a very warm welcome and good evening to everyone here. We have a stellar panel, as Sakshi mentioned, and it comes on the back of a very, very eventful budget, if I may add. You know, I was talking to some people just before the budget was announced, some people including those from the markets, and they said it doesn't look like it will be very, something major, eventful. We've already had a vote on account, so it will probably be a continuation of what is to come. However, I think there are some big pluses and also some interesting surprises which are there in store in the budget. And to discuss all that and more, we will go through this panel and seek the expert views of this wonderful set. So I'll start first, the topic of discussion itself from each of you, which is unleashing the animal spirits. The budget was supposed to be one which will set the stage for Viksit Bharat, India 2047. What in your view, and I'll go around the panel first, getting your initial thoughts before we come down to specifics, what in your view, Mr. Agarwal here, is the budget's key themes according to you, and do you think the animal spirits will be unleashed by this?
I think, first of all, Viksit Bharat and the India growth story. These are the two very, very important things. As far as the India growth story is concerned, that is going very well. All of us know it. Our economy is growing. And then on top of it, what the budget can do to take this growth further, I think is to give the further boost of capital expenditure. Because that has the multiplier impact on all other parameters. If we can see the allocation for capital expenditure, even though it has been kept as same, which was there in vote on account, 11.11 lakh crores. But that amount is, I would say, quite substantial. And this is on top of already a very high base, because last year itself, that was increased by 33% from 750,000 to 10 lakh crores. So therefore, on top of it, this allocation, and then when you say unleashing animal spirits, I think once the central government is spending so much money, it means there is so much expenditure happening, so much income is getting generated, so much activity is happening, and that activity is further than creating that virtuous cycle, which will lead to more investments from the private sector.
I mean, we'll come back to that issue because there is a view that private sector investments haven't really followed through. We'll come back to that. Dhruv, your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I think, for me, one big positive, in this budget, and, you spoke, and the theme of the conference today is, or the panel is unleashing animal spirits. I think the abolition of the angel tax for startups was a big one for me. I come from the startup ecosystem, having started my company about 12 years ago. I think last few years have been extremely troublesome for new startups and founders, where they've been receiving notices from the income tax department, taxing them on the difference between the book value of the shares and the premium they've been collecting, and how startups traditionally get funded is through high valuations, especially from foreign investors. So that, I think, was a big dampener for the ecosystem. But the abolition of that angel tax in this budget, I think, was a big ask of the startup ecosystem. That having been abolished, I think is a big plus, which will, I think, unleash animal spirits further.
Do you think that sort of,
Yeah.
as we go to the autumn of the funding winter, and now it's the funding autumn, as somebody said, do you think that will really add to that?
I think so. Look, I think the funding autumn or winter, as you said, I think it's the winter, and hopefully the winter is about to end now. I think it will add to that. We all know that 2020, 2021, this post-COVID, saw a lot of excesses in the entire funding ecosystem globally. I think valuations were crazy and a lot of capital was coming in, sometimes unjustifiably. But that happens, when there is the greed cycle. I think that went into autocorrect mode towards the end of 21. And I think things will start coming back as interest rates start to go down in the US as well. But clearly, this particular move will definitely aid that, because there was this regulatory overhang on all fundraisers, which I don't think was a healthy thing. So I'm quite glad that happened.
Vineet, your initial thoughts, pluses, what did not happen according to you, what could have been better, your initial thoughts on this?
I wouldn't want to comment on the budget specifically, because we believe now that the budget is becoming one of the directional documents for growth. It is not the only document. It is a path, it's a direction for the country as a whole. But there are lots of other things that are happening. I mean, a few years ago, we should talk about the railway budget. It's no longer there. And other than that, the other impetus, whether it is coming from organizations like Niti Aayog, or the general feedback the government is giving on a regular basis, schemes that get announced throughout the year, states are bidding for new projects, new investments that are coming up in different parts of the country. It's an ongoing thing. We are no longer dependent on February 1st only. Earlier it was February 28th, I think, or
Yes.
something like that. So we're no longer dependent on that. We moved away from that. So I think it is directional, and it is positively directional. So it's not populist entirely. It will probably become populist, as we are thinking it might be with the elections that happened this year. And ultimately, the animal spirits will only come when there is confidence in the system. Across the board, there has to be confidence, whether it is someone at a consumer level, someone at a trader level, someone with a SME, MSME, and subsequently the larger corporates, when we're talking about the business community. But people have to feel confident. And when people start feeling confident, that's where an unleashing of the spirits will come. And we'll probably dwell into that later.
Do you think that this is a confidence booster kind of a budget?
Certainly. I think, some of the steps where consumption should trigger consumption with more money in people's hands is one of the steps, clearly. But as I said, there are lots of other things that are parallelly happening.
Actually, more money in people's hands, do you really agree with that view? Because there are contrary opinions on that as well.
So, at the outset, my apologies for joining in late. I'm coming from the healthcare background. I think, it has been taken with a pinch of salt. A lot of expectations from the current budget. Yes, there has been some positives, specifically directing to the medical devices and cancer treatments.
Drugs, yes.
Those are the two ups for us. But I think our expectations, especially from a private healthcare standpoint, where there's a lot of interest from private equity coming and trying to invest in healthcare specifically. I think we could have gotten better if there was some specific focus on the financial aspects of the healthcare operations. In last 3 or 4 years, we have seen that huge amount of interest, especially after the post-COVID era. Everybody is focusing on healthcare. With the kind of corporatization which has happened in healthcare in the last few years, and the kind of technology being used up, and the medical devices industry is expanding big way. And unfortunately, not many products are being made in India. So we end up paying a lot of money at the end of the patient's end, to the consumer end. There's a big cost to get the delivery. So PMJ scheme definitely is getting, spreading to a larger population. But I still feel, there could have been more concrete step in terms of the healthcare delivery, and of course the survival of the corporate hospitals and the chains as a whole in India.
Mr. Agarwal, let me come to you on one big takeaway from this budget, which is the employment-linked incentive scheme, the ELI, and various parts of it, some for the employees, first-time employees, some parts for the employers. In all, a big move to try and get jobs as the key agenda item back and give it a big push. Do you think that's going to work? What are your thoughts on the ELI scheme?
I think that's a good incentive to start with. I think like if they are saying that the both employer and the new employees, both of them are going to get some additional money in their hand, and then they are saying that even the internship, if companies beyond 5,000, which government will pay stipend, and
but does the private sector have enough jobs?
Balance money will be paid as CSR. So yes, this is a good incentive. Now, of course, jobs get created when there is more expansion. If
when there is demand.
When there is demand, then there is more expansion. Now that you have to link to the fundamentals. Fundamentally, economy is growing. Our real growth is 8% plus last year, and this year also we are projecting good growth. And with the infrastructure investments, we are expecting that there will be growth. And as I was mentioning, the private investments, even though now still the track record has not been that strong, but of course, when so much public investment is happening, government is investing so much money, private sector will have to invest, because the capacities will need to be created. If you have to export more from here, if your technology is going up, if your country is growing, then the capacities will have to be there. And the capacities have to be there, then of course more investments will happen. If you look at our own company, we have very good expansion plans in the auto sector. I think all companies have great investment plans. Under PLI, auto sector has committed 75,000 crores to be invested for Atmanirbhar Bharat and for indigenizing the technologies here. For microprocessors, a lot of investments are going to happen. So therefore, I think these investments are going to come. So we should have confidence. We should have faith and trust. The things will fall in place. And of course, on top of it, when you give incentives for more skill creation, more trainings, and more industrial training institutes, or various types of, these are all the small, you can say just the push. Government is giving it a push. End of the day, it has to be taken on its own force. So I think these are the steps in the right direction.
That's an important point, Dhruv, which I want to ask you about, that the government has made its first steps known. It's ticked the box, the right box, in terms of an employment-linked incentive scheme, which many felt that may not happen. It was suggested, but they have taken it up and they've done it as the first step. Do you think the private sector will respond?
I think, if you look at, private investment over the last couple of years as compared to government investment, I think it hasn't kept pace. And I think what the government's done right is it's spent a lot of focus and emphasis on investing in infrastructure and laying the foundation, I think, for private investment. So I think that the private sector, just given, where we stand today, especially with regard to the country being seen as an alternative to China, I think the private sector will respond. And I'm pretty confident that, as I think Vineet pointed out, what's important is confidence in the economy. What's important is confidence in the way forward, confidence in political stability. With all of that in place, I'm pretty certain the private sector will respond effectively.
Vineet, I'll come to one aspect which the economic survey also pointed out, which is the importance of Gen AI and the impact of Gen AI on jobs. On one hand, we do have an employment issue, and the government has come front and center and put forward this scheme. On the other hand, the economic survey does warn about the possible impact of Gen AI. What is where do you stand on the Gen AI and factor and its impact on jobs?
There are lots of jobs that will go away with Gen AI, that's for sure. And those jobs will get repurposed into some other jobs. For example, prompt engineers for Gen AI. That's a big job by itself. Apart from that, so I'm not an expert on that, but I can definitely say if you want some product delivered to your home, Gen AI can't do it. You still need someone to do it till we get robots and other things that proliferates across all modes and it gets to your household, even if you're living on the 20th floor of a building. So there will be jobs that are there that are needed, and the difference has always been employment versus employability. There are people that are available. We recruit about 700 people a year, 700 to about 1,000 people a year. But we have to put them through a training program for a year, literally, to really get them to a certain speed. When we talk to students who've graduated from colleges, some of them don't know who the President of India is. So there is a huge gap there. So skill enhancement, adding to skills, upskilling, reskilling are things that will be required, and certainly Gen AI will help in that process. I do not think it's going to be negative initially. If you ask 10 years from now, perhaps there could be an impact. We are a country that is going to require a lot more jobs than we can even think about. And perhaps in 10 years, we will definitely see a challenge.
In healthcare, of course, Gen AI is a big advantage, Aashish. What are your thoughts on that?
So in healthcare, specifically few specialties like radiology, where the AI is started to interpret the radiographs, MRIs, and CTs. That came very handy in an epidemic-like situation. And of course, the tele-ICU and telemedicine, and how the softwares are able to read through the patient's vitals, the thermographs, all those things are actually, reducing the burden of already, burdened critical care teams. So that is an upside. Of course, somebody who, takes up, the advantage with AI, tries to reduce the footprint of manpower working for the patient care. But yes, on the other hand, we would require a lot of new jobs which would be required to maintain these systems, software, and continue to evolve, because AI in healthcare, of course, we have to take it with pinch of salt. Sometimes the reporting can go haywire, and they may report a normal X-ray as a cancer patient. So those things, the human intervention will always remain till we are very sure the algorithms have matured enough so that they can, time and again, with almost 100% accuracy, they are able to predict as a clinician because the multiple variables depending on the age, the disease and other patterns, the AI has to keep on evolving and learning. I think that would require a few more years. But yes, it is surely going to impact the manpower setting, of course, the training levels of the people who are going to get involved in with these modern systems in place.
So what would companies like yours do, for instance?
So, of course, small baby steps, especially where it's already been tested, like in radiology, and of course the robotic system, which has, almost crept in every OR, that has come very handy for, and it has shown initial positive results. In our own setting, we use the soft tissue robot called Da Vinci for almost all surgical procedures. Yeah, the orthopedic robot is also being used, and likewise, many more such the inventions and discoveries are coming up in the OR, in the ICU rooms, and we are actually finding benefits. While the consultant is on round, is able to monitor 20 patients on his mobile phone and also gets critical alerts for any variation which is beyond a normal permissible limit. So we are seeing early results, and we are motivated enough, and the clinicians, when they see value in their patient care, they are more eager to learn than we have ever seen in last many decades.
Mr. Agarwal, let's come back to your sector, which is auto, which is in fact, it's a kind of a barometer for the economy itself. We've been writing about it in Business Today and discussing it. There has been a kind of a K-shaped, growth in the auto sector itself. Luxury cars, the high-end cars have been selling off pretty well, while there is the entry-level cars have been really badly hit. And the country's largest auto company, Maruti, has also talked about it pretty openly. Do you think the budget does enough to generate that kind of demand at the bottom end of the pyramid?
First of all, I think if you look at the overall auto sector, Overall auto sector is doing pretty well. Our auto sector total turnover is now 20 lakh crores. And the numbers, overall numbers put together, last year we have grown by 12.5%. Just at entry level, there is some stress. But if you look at overall car market, overall passenger cars, we are now the third largest market in the world. We have already crossed 4 million sales.
But
domestic.
entry-level stress is a
Entry
signal,
level
right?
stress is there in sedan. There are two reasons. One reason is that people also have upgraded. Now there are utility vehicles or SUVs or entry-level utility vehicles. Now they itself are available at say 5 lakhs, 7 lakhs. So therefore people don't go in for 3 lakhs, 4 lakhs. So that is one reason that people have upgraded. The people who were to buy smaller 3 lakh car, they are buying now 5 lakhs or 6 lakh car. So therefore there is upgradation. The second is some stress in the rural economy. Rural economy stress is quite visible, it was there. But the good thing is it is coming back. The rural economy is coming back, and one of our requests to government was that please allocate more for the rural economy, do more for the rural economy, which of course I think they have done very well, and I think 2.66 lakh crores has been allocated for rural economy. There has been good allocations for agricultural growth, and of course all other capital investments which are going to happen. I think overall income levels are going to be better. So therefore we are quite positive that the entry level also will start going up. In fact, one good sign is if you look at even last month scooter, these two-wheeler figures, there has been, I think there was around 28% growth in scooters last month. The growth in scooters was very good, which also clearly indicates that the rural economy has started coming back. So I think we have to think positive.
But the
things will fall in
movement
place.
from two-wheelers to the entry-level four-wheelers is still a problem, right?
No, it must be happening. It's not. We can't say that it's a problem because always there will be upgradation. Because as people income levels are going up, definitely there are aspirations. If someone is running the high-end two-wheeler, he would definitely like to go in for the car, and they are going in for that. And so I see no.
So
no
as
concern there.
an auto sector player, you are optimistic.
Auto sector, we are very optimistic. There is tremendous growth potential. And we are still at a very, very, you can say, small scale as far as the overall potential is concerned. So therefore, we are looking at much bigger picture.
That's something the finance minister will be happy to hear. Coming to you, Dhruv, what is your sense of the sector you belong to, real estate? What is, the big hit, of course, everybody's talking about the indexation going away. What are your thoughts? We were discussing that before the session started. Let's hear from you. What do you think about it?
So look, let me take a step back, away from the budget and just look at the residential real estate sector. I think, between 2013 and 2021, we saw like an extended down cycle. Every time, the market looked to come back, we had events. There was, demonetization. Then there was the introduction of the RERA, which kind of led to developers having to recalibrate how they operated. Then there was the whole issue around GST. Then there was the NBFC crisis, and then there was, of course, COVID. But since then, the residential real estate sector has sort of, started looking up. And I think, we are firmly in an up cycle for residential real estate. So there's nothing in the budget which I think suggests that there's anything negative. If anything, there are, a few positives. I think, one of them is sort of the whole Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana PMA 2, which has again allocated almost 2.2 lakh crores towards the urban component of PMA, which I think is a big positive. This whole thing around transit-oriented development, which will give an impetus to development. Government said 14 cities with population of more than 3 million. I think that will help development as well. Plus, I think the big spend on infrastructure. I think 11 lakh crores once again for infrastructure. I think is overall a great boost for the real estate sector. I think a lot has been discussed around the introduction of, or not the introduction, rather the change in how capital gains in real estate will be taxed. It used to be, 20% after indexation. Now indexation has been removed and it's been reduced to 12.5%. I don't think it's going to have any real negative impact on the sector if you look at it from a long-term perspective. In the short term, people are a little concerned that, are we going to pay more taxes? Frankly, it all depends on when you bought the property, where have you bought the property, how much appreciation the property has seen. So it's really hard to nail down and say it's good or bad for the sector. I think if you're an end user buying a home, it doesn't really make a difference. If you're an investor who's looking to make gains, I always remind people that, first you make the gains, then you pay the tax. So I don't think it's going to be a major derailer for the sector in any way. What I really liked in this budget was, I think the first time, I think the centers come out sort of suggesting to the states that look at reducing stamp duty. They've spoken about reducing stamp duty for women, which will obviously have a positive impact, drive home ownership for women, but at the same time also encourage, first-time home buyers. I've seen stamp duty being used as a tool globally to kind of balance demand for residential real estate. For first-time home buyers, there's usually a discounted rate, which encourages people, first-time home buyers, to buy a home. And for people buying a home for a second or third time, which basically goes into the realm of investment, their stamp duties have been raised by other countries to deter that, so that there is no speculation. So I think we should, increasingly look at stamp duty as a tool to manage demand and supply in real estate, prevent speculation, as well as give encouragement to first-time home buyers. Although I recognize it is a state subject, and the center cannot do much about it other than sort of, suggest, give indications like they have given in this budget. But I think it's a good move, in the right direction.
That's an important point, the stamp duty, the question which you raised. Let's come back a little bit to affordable housing again, Dhruv. There's, of course, the Prime Minister in his first move, in fact, the 2.2 lakh crore allocation for affordable housing was one big move he did the moment he took charge the third time. However, there's a lot of talk about affordable, whether
Definition,
the definition and what is really affordable housing in today's context, in terms of both the area, the upper limit. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a very fair point, Saurabh. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, the definition is, 90 square meters in non-metro and 60 square meters in metro cities. I think that's fine. But I think the debatable point really is the cap on what is called as affordable. I think 45 lakhs is a little too low. Between 2015 and 2020, real estate prices grew at a CAGR of about 2.5%. So if you look at it in terms of, and given what the inflation rates were at that point in time, I think in real terms, prices actually came down. However, since 21 to now, I think prices have been on a tear. My worry is that they're almost in bubble-like territory right now, and hopefully they don't keep going up, because otherwise end users will get crowded out. But in this context of rising prices over the last 2.5 years, this cap of 45 lakhs, I think, seems to be a little low. Our hope was that it would have been increased. But again, I think Vineet made a very interesting point that budget is not the only instrument or time of the year when policy changes are made. I think this government has demonstrated and shown that they listen to market participants, are willing to take feedback. So hopefully, as this topic is discussed more in panels such as these, the government is listening and will consider raising that cap, because otherwise it might lose, all the incentives given might lose its teeth if the definition itself is 45 lakhs.
Vineet, on the logistics side, are you happy with the budget, and do you think it will spur the animal spirits we talked about at the beginning?
Logistics sector is directly dependent on GDP growth. So anything that spurs GDP growth will help the logistics sector as a whole. However, there are certain areas of logistics that's changing now, and the national logistics policy really talked about it specifically, which is the first point is how do we reduce logistics cost in India?
Yeah.
And logistics cost in India cannot come down by some basic steps, but we have to take very long-term steps in terms of moving towards multimodal transport. Around 60-65% of our cargo today in the country moves by road. It has to move to rail, it has to move to other modes like sea and inland waterways. China, for example, has almost 25% by 20 to 25% by coastal waterways. So we have to bring the logistics cost down, and multimodal means a lot of investment into infrastructure, which is great. In the past, we've been building infrastructure really for the past. We used to build something, we used to see it's already full. Fortunately, now in the last at least decade or so, we've been seeing that infrastructure is really being built for a long-range planning. And that is really helping the thought that, yes, we can now move to multimodal, barring, of course, the other infrastructure that's also coming up, which aids logistics. The second part of logistics is standardization. So how can anything that we move today is in a standardized format? You'll be surprised to know that there's only 10% containerization in the country, or palletization is hardly existing. So everything moves through a head load. All those things would mean a huge amount of efficiency and productivity gains, and hence logistics costs will come down. And the third is digitization. Again, we've taken fantastic steps in digitization in the last few years. Something called ULIP, Unified Logistics Interface Platform, is really helping to bring all the data, whether it is your FASTag data, whether it's your e-way bill data, your export-import data, into a single platform to track and trace. And these are the value adds that are really going to help the logistics sector. So budget per se, the direct impact is infrastructure, which is really positive, 11.1 lakh crores. And I think this will spur the sector definitely.
From your point of view, Aashish, what are your thoughts on what the budget could have done a little more for your sector?
Well, the response has been lukewarm because the budget for healthcare has also not been increased greatly. Yeah, so that positives on the cancer side, of course, it's going to impact a certain percentage of people who are seeking that critical disease care pathways across the India. But if you look at other major issues like the integration of the health data of everyone, just like we have Aadhaar, there was a lot of motion last year where if somebody is going through treatments of various hospitals, government or private, there has to be a umbrella ID which can collate all the data so that the repetitive testing and the misinformation, and there is a transparent seamless integration of all the systems. That is something which I feel is going to reduce a lot of medical errors. It's going to increase the efficiency across various hospitals, and a unique health ID, if that can also be a part of the mission, I think that can integrate all the healthcare systems which are available, just like in Western world. And patient, the ultimate benefit will go to the patient, where all the data is secure. Although in fragmented ways, a lot of startups are focusing on that, but unless there is a central drive, it's not going to make that ripple effect and goes across the India. So that's one area where a lot of efforts are required, and it's going to be a game changer for most of the patients, and in fact the healthcare providers as well, in terms of the data they can the analytical work which can go through the health ID. And once we are focusing on the health ID, the other aspect, which is of course cancer, they have been taken care of, but look at the other the pharma industry, where most of the consumption, the COGS part of every treatment, majority is the medicines and consumables. A lot of products have been made in India, but still the high-end antibiotics and other products, antifungal, and those we have seen big time in COVID, where those were contributing almost 40% of any patient's treatment. So that is still not being addressed completely. If there can be some efforts to reduce and make it more affordable, I think even in private healthcare, this is causing a lot of strain on the system to actually maintain the EBITDAs of the organization.
We're running out of time. Mr. Agarwal, I want to end by asking you about the electric vehicles scenario. Nothing on FAME, and yet yesterday, late last night, we had the extension of the support scheme for another 2 months till September. What are your thoughts? I mean, there is a lot of push for EVs in general from this government, but there is not enough in the budget or around that.
Yeah, absolutely. We were expecting that there will be some mention about that, but unfortunately there was no mention about electric vehicles. But I'm sure electric vehicle incentivization is there on the agenda of the government, and we are very clearly expecting from the auto sector from government that new FAME 3 scheme should come soon, because without incentives, I think this industry will not be able to move up with the same speed as we envisage, because the current cost of acquisition is still very high.
In fact, there is a study recently which has said a large number of people want to go back to ICE vehicles after using EVs.
Maybe some cases, because that may not be true. I would say that, because clearly there is advantage if you have bought an electric vehicle with the clear calculation that how much is your utilization. If you have a fairly good utilization per day, if you are running it well, you are saving good amount of money in the operating cost, and of course it makes a lot of economic sense for two-wheelers as well as for passenger cars. That's why you are seeing good growth coming from these two sectors. Two-wheelers are now around 4-5%, and passenger cars are still around 1.5%, but still you are seeing around 7,000, 8,000 electric cars getting sold. And we are expecting that they will migrate, but of course in the current temporary scheme which is there, and they have added 288 crores for another 2 months.
Additional, yeah.
I think that is not enough. That is only for two-wheelers. And for two-wheelers and three-wheelers, that amount also has been brought down from the earlier, which were there in the FAME scheme. So therefore, we are expecting a proper FAME scheme, and I'm sure, as Vineet mentioned,
it's not outside the budget.
Budget is not the only event.
I was about
we
to
are
add
looking
that.
forward to more events, and maybe the government is working on it.
So the budget, as the general consensus on this panel goes, is not the only time when the government can take steps to boost the economy. It's one of the steps. It's an important step. It lays the foundation for the future. But that's not the only way in which things can be done. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this wonderful panel and your insights on various subjects relating to unleashing the animal spirits in the economy. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Saurav.
Thank you, dear panelists and Saurav, for kicking off this evening with such engaging and insightful conversations and paving the way for what promises to be a truly enlightening series of conversations this evening. Thank you so much for that great beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, our next panel is titled India's Atmanirbhar Markets.